This is Steve Laffey's Fixing America. And now, broadcasting live from the Fixing America Command Center in Fort Collins, Colorado, here is your host, Steve Laffey.
Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. Thanks for showing up today. LaffeyRadio.com. We've got Newsday Tuesday. We've got an awful lot to talk about. And we got so many topics. I'm going to try to go some of them pretty quickly. But just remember, is on Facebook. We love the fact that it's growing on Facebook. Liking is on Facebook. Laffey Radio on Facebook. Laffey Radio on Twitter. It's just Laffey Radio. And remember, like tomorrow morning, we'll be putting up a brand new Fixing America Presents. That's a longer version than a Laffey Minute. We put one of those up every morning. And we got a lot of stuff on that website, so you can send it to friends and tell your friends about it. But yesterday we were finishing up, and I just couldn't finish. I mean, I could have gone on for another hour and a half about the minimum wage laws, but there was one part that I'm going to bring at the beginning of the show today, because I think the most egregious example of what would happen. Yesterday we were talking about some people in America want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The median wage for people is 16 and change. It would have an unbelievable bad effect, especially on minorities, especially on young people, especially on people getting their first job, especially on teenagers who have a 20, depending on where you are and who you are, 20 to 35% unemployment rate. They simply can't get jobs. But you need to turn to the American Samoa. And I got this out of the American Heritage. But American Samoa always had a minimum wage law, about $3, $3.20 or so. And of course, I imagine, I don't know this to be true, I've never been to the American Samoa, but I imagine they have a lower cost of living. But they got these canneries over there, and people putting tuna fish, a Starfish Tuna Factory, or whatever it is, canning operation. But they were forced in 2007 to have to go from $3.26 to raise it 50 cents per year until they get to $7.25, the federal law. And what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Just go right through what happened to these people. Their unemployment rate went. This is before it even got to $7.25. Their employment rate jumped from 5% to 35%. That's not a misprint, by the way. 5% to 35%. You had the Democratic governor of American Samoa, and I cannot say his name. Let's call him Tulafana, harshly criticized for the Government Accountability Office for understating the damage done. I mean, they had Chicken of the Sea shut down their entire plant. So if you think about what we saw Senator Warren in Massachusetts, if you watched yesterday, talking about how maybe it should be $22, that's what would happen. That's what happened. It wasn't even just the $3. It didn't even get it. It got to like $5 by the time they wrote this article. Today it's at $7.25, and maybe I don't know what the unemployment rate is, but I know that they're not canning stuff over there in American Samoa. So there's a simple example of when people ask you about the minimum wage, you can give a concrete example about what's happened in various places when they make a drastic change. Of course, you make slower changes. If the drastic outcomes, it just takes longer to have them. So anyway, that's finishing the minimum wage debate, which is, it's not a popular thing to say in many quarters. Second thing I want to talk to you about, vitamins. Let's go with vitamins for a second. My entire life, been told to take vitamins. You've got to take a lot of extra vitamin C to keep you from getting colds. You've got to have a lot of vitamin D because you don't get it from the sun, or is it vitamin E? You take the vitamin E pills. If you wake up in the middle of the night like I do and you can't sleep, all these commercials about all these supplements you should be taking, various parts of your life, and so forth. But it's always been about vitamins. And it's been one of these things that goes on. And people spend like $23 billion a year at general nutrition. You've got them in your town. They're selling them at Walgreens and CVS. It's everywhere. And they're very expensive. A new report came out yesterday. There's no benefit in preventing chronic disease, and they should be avoided. This is the Annals of Internal Medicine. They did exacting studies over 12 years. And it just makes me wonder, is anything I've heard It doesn't matter whether it was aluminum baseball bats better than wooden bats. I mean, is anything I heard over the last 30, 40 years, is any of it true? I mean, these guys, it's a pretty exacting study. 12-year period, several different groups. The second study involved 1,700 patients. They were all 50 or older. They'd already had a heart attack about at least 6 weeks earlier. They were given either high-dose multivitamins or a placebo. And it makes you, by the way, it makes you wonder about the guys getting the placebo, like who thought they should be taking the vitamins. I don't know if I'd ever be part of a study where, like, I might think I need this, but I might be getting the placebo. What if it was better for you? But they find out did not reduce the patient's risk of dying or suffering further cardiovascular problems, et cetera, et cetera. Another study, 5,947 male physicians. They went over the cognitive effects of them age 65 and older. They were either given a daily multivitamin, the Centrum Silver, or placebo pills. And they went over their cognitive skills, no change. So, in fact, one person, talks about his one doctor, a Columbia University cardiologist who led the study. He's been telling his patients for decades not to take vitamins. We're not taking care of patients with nutritional deficiency. I've never seen a patient with scurvy, which is a deficiency for vitamin C that we read about in the history books, generally speaking, in America, not talking about other countries. Many people use vitamins as a way to eat badly, but take vitamins. Study shows this is not the way to do things. You shouldn't. By the way, it makes some common sense. I stopped taking vitamins. It was several years ago, and on a talk show at night, there was another study that had been done about this that said taking large quantities of, I forget what vitamin it was, but actually would lead to something wrong with your kidneys and your liver and so forth. Late night talk show host, not too late, not the guy talking about the aliens, but a regular talk show host. You get past about 10 o'clock at night, it's about aliens till about 4 in the morning. I know this because I've been up late. And it gets mostly entertainment. But I stopped taking all kind of vitamins and ate a healthy diet. I ate a pretty healthy diet, generally speaking. Not this morning, but most days. Not over the weekend when I was traveling, but most days. But it just shows that you get most of the stuff from your food. But it gets at this other thing. Are we getting, people want to sell stuff. And are we getting anything you see on TV? Anything you've been believing for a long time when it comes to products? Because I believed a long time when I was a kid, you should take a lot of vitamin C. And I took a lot of vitamin C. Keep away colds. I'm a bad sick person. I don't like to be sick, so I just sucked down whatever I could to and I haven't been sick in a long time. I kind of ascertained to have seen a chiropractor that I think has a lot to do with staying healthy. I'm going to see one tomorrow morning, in fact. So anyway, that's the second story. Vitamins. Don't take them. You don't need to take them. It's a lot of money. People are wasting $23 billion. That's nowhere near how much the federal government wastes, but $23 billion on a product seems to be outrageous. Just eat an orange every couple of days. Have a banana. You'll get your vitamins. That's the way it works. Let's turn now to the real big story of the last 24 hours. Well, there's several big stories. But I think the biggest story has been a judge ruling that you can't just spy on everybody all the time. And I think the real question, we're going to cover this in 2 segments now. The real question to ask is, can Mr. Snowden, who operates out of Russia now, can he, who stole all these secrets of America, can he still be a traitor? And can spying on everybody's phone records and everybody all the time and keeping records of them, can that still be unconstitutional? And what the NSA was doing still be wrong? Let's play a clip to get going here. This is Judge Napolitano, who works at Fox News, and see what he has to say about it.
Was it a ruling or a statement from a judge who said the NSA's spying on phones is almost certainly unconstitutional? Have I got that right?
Yes, and
it's very important.
Yes, the reason for the almost certainly is this is a preliminary ruling, and the judge stayed the effect of the ruling until it can be appealed to a higher court. Yeah. But basically, some plaintiffs, people who use Verizon, and almost certainly were among the 113 million whose phone records were initially seized, filed a complaint saying this violates my constitutional rights, I want it stopped now. Now, when you ask for immediate relief, this is not the final resolution, it's an immediate decision. The judge has to decide, are you likely to prevail? If you are likely to prevail, are you harmed now? If you're harmed now, are you entitled to immediate relief? The judge answered all three of those questions, yes. And in deciding, are you likely to prevail, he basically said, the Constitution does not permit the Congress to authorize the FISA court to authorize this kind of spying. That if you want to spy on somebody for a day or so, you could probably do it. But to spy on everybody, quote, world without end, I'm quoting the case, these are not my words, is an absolute and direct violation of the Fourth Amendment.
That's Judge Napolitano speaking. I think this is yesterday. And then sometimes what I do is I keep, and I suggest people do this, when I have a bunch of these, I give them out sometimes, but I keep a copy of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And so we're talking about this ruling by a judge who was appointed by George Bush, who's ruled that you can't spy on people all the time. But let's go back to what he's really ruling about, which is the Fourth Amendment. And let's read it. I mean, every once in a while, since I'm not a constitutional lawyer, like the President of the United States, who seems to like to violate the Constitution, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I just keep it with me in case I have to. Someone asks me a question. Here's Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, their houses, their papers, and effects. So you have a right to be secure in your person, walking around, right? In your houses, pretty obvious. Papers, remember there's no internet back there. I would imagine papers would include the internet today, if you looked at it reasonably. And effects, well, that would probably include your phone, right? Your effects. Comma. Commas are always important in the Constitution. Against unreasonable searches and seizures. What would be unreasonable? You need to get a warrant, right? Someone thinks you committed a crime. Shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause. So if you're taking, stop for a second, if you're taking the time to spy on everybody all the time, on all the records, let's say, of our phone conversations, which is basically what the NSA has done, keep them somewhere, would you have probable cause to do it with me? Do it with you? Seems unlikely. Supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So you have to be specific in the Fourth Amendment. You can't just go to a judge and say, we want, as Judge Napolitano said, without quoting the Fourth Amendment, you can't say, I just want to spy on the citizens of Fort Collins, Colorado all the time this week because somebody in there is actually going to commit a terrorist act. And I guess it gets down to this question. I mean, when you read the Fourth Amendment, sometimes when you read some of these amendments, believe me, and so you ask yourself, who's defending this? And we'll talk about this after the first break. We'll take a quick break here. It's Steve Laffey here at Steve Laffey's LaffeyRadio.com. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We appreciate you watching us. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back and discuss this further.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
Picture this, your next trip, Utah, 5 national parks. First, Zion. You're walking, the ground rises, the ground drops, the ground becomes water. Next, Bryce. You're riding a mule. You're riding a mule under giant orange drip castles. You are not dreaming. You will not forget this. On to Capitol Reef. Take the scenic route, the really scenic route. Take a path you've never taken and see the stars for the first time. Now for Canyonlands. You're riding a bike. You're riding a bike on Mars. Now you're riding the rapids. Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Classic. Arches, 5:32 a.m. Some things are worth racing the sunrise for. The horizon lightens. You round the corner. Whoa. This is Life Elevated. The Mighty 5. 5 iconic parks, 1 epic experience. Plan your trip at visitutah.com.
I'm always up for a challenge. It's the feeling of accomplishment that drives me. And there's no better challenge than serving part-time in the Coast Guard Reserve. I protect my country, work with the best and brightest. I get great pay and benefits in return. Coast Guard Reserve is important work. I get to serve my community, and it's always rewarding.
If you were born ready, there's a new challenge waiting for you. Learn about serving part-time at gocoastguard.com/reserve.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
If the police came to me and said, we want a search warrant for everybody in this zip code because we're looking for one bad guy, I wouldn't have signed it.
No, hold on, Judge. There's search warrants and search warrants. This is to ask for tracking of phone numbers and phone calls, not necessarily to listen into them.
The tracking of the calls, and the judge articulates this in the opinion, results in the preservation of the conversation to which the NSA has access forever, for as long as they keep the records. Are you going to be kept safe? The appropriate question is, are you going to be kept free?
That is a good question. You want to be kept safe, or do you want to be kept free, and how do you want to make the choice? And unfortunately, I think many people would make the choice of being safe, not worrying about their freedom. It's a problem. It's one of the biggest problems we have in America. People don't think about the freedom. We take it for granted so much. We don't look over to other countries where we're very insular. We don't look over at how people are fighting in Ukraine today. We don't say, oh my gosh, what was their life like? What is their life like? How could I? Because we've had 200 and some odd years of freedom. But what we're talking about here in Newsday Tuesday, Steve Laffey here. Steve Laffey's Fixing America, LaffeyRadio.com. Appreciate all the stuff you're doing here, passing stuff around, letting people know there's a different show. There is a different show. We can expose things and we can provide solutions. And this is one of the real tough cases. This is one that you take a look at, and you look at what's happened just recently, because what's happened after this ruling by a federal judge who says the tracking of these calls by the NSA is unconstitutional. I've read you the Fourth Amendment. It's not hard to figure out that the Fourth Amendment would find this unconstitutional, I mean, in my opinion. But you have people, no matter what. For example, here, and by the way, it's funny how some people are conservative, some people are very liberal, can rally on a certain issue like this. And then the people who work for the NSA, or who, by the way, not bad people, they may think about it in a different way, but backers of the NSA's efforts that said Judge Leon advocated standards for surveillance that would be, quote, difficult if not impossible to meet. Stewart, by the way, let me stop there. Is that, though, the answer to violating the Fourth Amendment? That you have tougher standards to meet. Safety, freedom. And if they're tracking these calls and they preserve the calls, we've already seen what's happened at the IRS. And by the way, it's happened at the IRS more than once. It's happened several times. Probably way more than several times. A lot of times over the years where it's been a political football. Back to Nixon. Back before Nixon, I'm sure. And so if the standards become difficult, if not impossible to meet, Stuart Baker, a former official for the Department of Homeland Security, called the judge's ruling a remarkably tone-deaf approach to a program that was started because we failed to identify some of the 9/11 hijackers. The judges in our country's job is not to be tone-deaf or toneful, if that's a word. It's to interpret the Constitution of the United States of America. I believe as the founders meant it. That's their job. That's what they should be doing. They don't always have to be worried, or have to be worried at all, about whether, imagine seriously, take it to any degree you want, where to catch these criminals, we need to not worry about whether the guy coming in to see the judge was truthful or not. We wouldn't hold him up to any standards. You know, Judge, I need a warrant to surveillance this guy. I mean, you've got to be truthful, because they can put you in jail, officer, cop, whatever you want to say. So it's very, very evident that it was violated. But it brings us to the second thing: is Snowden. This is a guy. If you don't remember who Mr. Snowden was, Mr. Snowden, who I consider a traitor. Let me tell you why. I want to go over this. It's very important. Snowden is a traitor, and you can tell who traitors are. Look throughout history. Guys who take big risk. Look at the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence. What do we say to people now? Sign your John Hancock somewhere. Why do we say sign? If you've forgotten or you didn't know, and they don't teach it in schools anymore, the reason that people say, an older person might say to you, because I don't think younger people say it at all anymore, sign your John Hancock here, is because John Hancock signed his name really big. He wanted everybody to know who he was at a time that it was really risky. He didn't run away because he knew that the British were going to come after him and try to burn his house and steal whatever he had and put him in jail or lynch him, in fact, you know. And what did Benedict Arnold, another famous name, what did he do? He fled. He changed sides and he fled. If Snowden wanted to be a hero, he could have taken this data knowing he had something that he thought was illegal, and he could have found U.S. senators who agreed with him. He could have found protection. He could have found some way to stay in this country, either face charges or be protected in some way, but not. He fled first to China, and then he fled to Russia. And now he wants to go to Brazil. But here's CNN's report on Snowden and how they view the situation.
6 months after Edward Snowden revealed it to the world, a federal judge ruled the NSA program that sweeps up Americans' phone call records is likely unconstitutional. The judge wrote, quote, "I cannot imagine a more indiscriminate and arbitrary invasion than this systematic and high-tech collection and retention of personal data on virtually every citizen." Snowden described it as a vindication of his hacking, saying, "I acted on my belief that the NSA's mass surveillance program would not withstand a constitutional challenge. Today, a secret program authorized by a secret court was, when exposed to the light of day, found to violate Americans' rights." Snowden remains holed up in Russia, avoiding charges in the U.S. of espionage. But a senior NSA official floated an unlikely solution on CBS 60 Minutes to get Snowden back here, give him amnesty, an idea the White House quickly dismissed.
He should be returned to the United States as soon as possible, where he will be accorded full due process and protections in our system. So that's our position, and it has not changed.
Still, the court's decision is a body blow for the administration.
Snowden now looking for another way out. This just in, he's written a letter, an open letter to the people of Brazil promising help in resisting NSA surveillance if they offer him asylum. We got a translation of that letter, and in it he writes, "Until a country grants me permanent political asylum, the U.S. government will continue to interfere with my ability to speak out." Certainly the administration not giving up here, but yes, it's a legal blow to them as well. And I think, as our legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin has noted, that judge, a George W. Bush appointee, so not a screaming liberal.
Whether or not he's a George W. Bush appointee, that's CNN, this is literally yesterday, discussing, you know, Snowden. And really, you can see through the wording, we're trying to lift Snowden up as if he's done something right. The information that came out, by the way, we think he may have given it to the Chinese. We may have given it to the Russians. He may have given it to other countries. I mean, we don't know this, but why do you think they let him live in Russia? Why do you think Putin has him? I mean, Putin has him. He gets the information out of him so he can live in the country. And if he didn't get the information out of him, or information that he needed, whatever it was, or anything, by the way, to make America look bad, that's really what it is. But Snowden is a traitor, and fact, John Bolton says you should hang from the tallest oak tree they can find when they get him back. But he does deserve a trial. But he never should have done what he did. He should have found a different way and shouldn't have been a coward about it. I don't know if he just panicked. I don't know if he didn't plan well. It is, by the way, what thing you never hear about again. All that information. When the guy says before that all it should, it's going to be hard and they should be able to keep this information. People should track our phone calls because we can stop terrorists. In that case, no one gave to the judge any information that would lead anybody to believe that we've caught one terrorist one time due to anything the NSA has done so far. And so you can see how information can be used. We can see this all the time, like with the IRS attacking some freedom groups and not giving them and going after them and asking for information, all the IRS stuff that happened earlier this year, which has already been swept under the rug again, which we guess we won't talk about anymore, which is outrageous that we don't talk about. We haven't made any changes. Let the lady resign who was in charge of it. But you can see that this information can lead to really bad things and very detrimental, especially if the wrong people are in charge. And so that's the issue. Safety, freedom. But in this case, there was nothing even about safety. I mean, we pretty much know who these people are. We are unwilling at airports. We still, I'm flying. We see little old ladies being taken aside as if they're terrorists and being, I'm not saying molested, but searched in a way that you wouldn't want your grandmother to be searched in. We see this happening. We see them not doing what Israel does, which is really they look at the peoples and who's coming through this airport, who's coming into this country, where they're coming from. We've got people in this country from all over the world who are here to do us harm, who are learning things that they can bring, whether it's physics, they're bringing it back to Middle Eastern countries. They're here from China. And we'll get into that after the next break, about what China's doing in spying and so forth. But anyway, we got to take another break. We'll come back and talk about another subject. But remember this: safety versus freedom. What side are you on? Steve Laffey. Steve Laffey's Fixing America at LaffeyRadio.com. We'll take another break. We'll be right back with some more stories.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I am an American soldier. I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place this first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am disciplined.
I am disciplined.
Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
My equipment and myself.
I'm an expert and I'm a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
There's strong, and there's Army Strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
What? Why? Just wait for the inheritance. We've definitely got a rich uncle somewhere. We're one call away from the winner's circle at the Derby, dinners with multiple forks, a vacation home in the country, using summer as a verb.
You don't actually think that, do you?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs, the Rhode Island Society of CPAs, and the Ad Council.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's like tiny nails in the air poke my lungs. I start to cough. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
Today, 1 out of 13 children suffer from some form of asthma, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all emergency room visits.
I feel like I'm choking. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. A little whistle sound comes out when I breathe.
But while your child may suffer from asthma doesn't have to make your child suffer. There are simple ways you can prevent your child's next attack. To learn more, log on to www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
The Affordable Care Act. Video 3. The individual mandate penalty. If you do not maintain minimum essential coverage, the penalties are the greater of 1% of your household income or a flat dollar amount, capped at the cost of the second lowest bronze level plan for your family. You will be required to pay a penalty for each month of non-compliance, but are allowed a grace period of 3 months of non-compliance without a penalty. In 2014, the monthly penalty will be the greater of 1% of the monthly household applicable income over the filing threshold, or $7.92 per uninsured adult plus $3.96 per each uninsured minor, capped at $23.75 monthly per household.
So I hope that answers any questions you had about the penalty.
Steve Laffey here. That's sort of a mashup of what's really going to happen in January when you can't get health insurance, can't get on the website, healthcare.gov. Don't trust the website because it's been proven that you can hack into it. We've played the clips on the show before. I mean, it's humorous, but it's actually they weren't reading like fake laws. Those are the laws. I could read them to you again, but they really don't make any sense. And they go up over years, and most people are going to. By the way, I just saw before I came into the show. No time to put it together, but the evidence that any young people are signing up for it is scant. That young people just don't even. By the way, they probably don't even know. But a lot of young people don't even know about it. They're like, "What are you talking about?" 24-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid, someone working in Kentucky losing their job in the coal mines today. Do you think he's on healthcare.gov this morning trying to figure it out? Do you think he's looking for another job? It's amazing what's happened, and it gets back. I want to go back to the beginning of the show. I talked to you about vitamins, and whether people really believe vitamins were good for you or bad for you or whatever. I imagine no one really knew. I imagine it just sounded good, and for 20, 30 years they built up General Nutrition, all other companies, $23 billion in sales just to push you on vitamins, push me on vitamins, which I bought for a while, not for years, but I bought for a while. But I've become so caustic in what I read now because I read things that don't make any sense, and I read articles, and I'm experienced enough to kind of see a lot of the bias in the articles. But a lot of people, that's not how they train. That's not what they do. They pick up, oh, this must be true. I should get some vitamins today. Take a multivitamin. I should take a lot of extra vitamin C pills. But getting back to this story about the thought process that the healthcare website either would work or this would be better for America. It's like reading the Fourth Amendment to you. I mean, that's pretty obvious that you can't spy on everybody all day long. It's fairly obvious that you can't do that. You actually need a warrant. Someone has to take an oath. It's got to be specific. None of that. We went through 10 years of doing this. And now finally, because someone's filed suit about it, so at least a judge is taking a look at it and saying you can't really do this. You've got to find another way. That's what we do in our great republic. You find another way to catch these criminals and go back to doing real police work, not capturing all the data of Americans. When it comes to healthcare.gov and it comes to this website, what can you really believe? I mean, here, listen to Jay Carney here, the press secretary, trying to deflect what's about to happen to people in January.
Policies go into effect by January 1st.
What I can tell you is that we are
December 23rd. Actually have their insurance policies go into effect by January 1st?
What I can tell you is that we are working overtime to make sure that every 834 form is accurate when it goes to the issues of the back ends, problems that existed, and I think you've seen a lot of reporting on how those back end issues have been addressed and continue to be addressed. One of the processes here is to ensure that those who enrolled are in communication with their issuers to make sure they know when their premiums are due, and that's something that we're trying to help facilitate. All I can tell you is we're doing everything we can to make sure that everyone who has enrolled, who pays his or her premium, is aware of all the information they need to do that and is covered on January 1st. This is something we're going to push through all the way to the end of the month.
Some will fall through the cracks.
Well, I can't speculate about what who may fail to pay his or her premium or what may happen. All I can tell you is what we're doing now to make sure that all of the forms are accurate, to make sure that everybody is being contacted who may have enrolled and may not be sure that the information got to their issuer, and we are doing that. CMS is doing that very aggressively. Brianna, and then I'll...
Okay, so Jay Carney redirecting the question, and here's the part I want to get to. A reporter, John Carl, asked halfway through that segment, do you think some will fall through the cracks? Some people. And he doesn't say why, but it's pretty obvious. They don't know about it. They can't get on the website. They're afraid to get on the website, which is now a legitimate concern, to get on that website and give someone your health insurance information. Wow. Government's capturing all health insurance information from people. Did people know this was going to happen? You want that at your doctor's office. Instead, you have to go on and give it to the government after they've captured your phone records. And no one sees something wrong with this? But he asks about falling through the cracks. Carney answers, quote, I can't speculate about what, comma, who may fail to pay his or her premiums or what may happen. First of all, he can't speculate about what may happen. There's a law about what will happen. We just played you sort of the humorous clip about it. He can't speculate. He can do more than speculate. He can read it off. He won't do it. He will never do it. But he's changing it to say, what about people simply, as if people who don't do this simply are refusing to pay. There's a lot of people out there who don't understand this. I mean, it's not the people listening to the show by and large. There's a lot of, travel the country, you'll find a lot of people don't understand what's going on. And they won't understand on January 1st. And the system won't work all the time. And they don't have all day long to get on. They just don't. That's not what they do. I'm going to play one more clip, because this is what happens. This is what happens when you do all this stuff. You need to have trust of the American people, and you need to be competent. Let's go see what's happened to our president on those issues.
On for a moment, Gloria Borgia is with us as well. Some disturbing poll numbers, Gloria, for the president today. Our new CNN ORC poll asked an opinion of the president right now. Look at how it's collapsed 12 points since May. Can he manage government? 52% said yes in May. 40% said yes right now. That's a pretty disturbing number.
Well, it is. If I were sitting at the White House right now, I don't think I'd be thrilled by these numbers, Wolf. Look, the two most important bonds between the president and the public are trust and competency. And you look at that 40% number, that's a competency number. We also have numbers that show that only 46% of the public thinks that he's honest. And so those are real problems.
Yeah, those are the problems. And the real question that is that in that White House, there seems to be almost no sense that that's important. Most people, whether it was President Clinton back in the 90s, could have been President Reagan over the Iran-Contra situation, when he had to come out and say, hey, it's my fault, and so forth. He regained trust in the American people. When Reagan, for example, didn't do the deal with the Soviet Union on Elvin Rechivac, very famous, they wouldn't do a bad deal. People went after him in the press, but the people trusted him. So he had the goodwill of the people to say, oh, we trust this guy. He's doing the right thing. We may not even agree with it. Reagan was one of these guys who got elected twice, where most people didn't agree with him, but they trusted him, that he was doing what he thought the right thing was. And even though they didn't think he was as competent, although he was a very competent guy, they trusted him to get people around him who were competent. That's the real failure here. We don't get people. The president doesn't have people around him who are competent at all. I mean, let's just play one more. Here's the Secretary of Human Services, Sebelius. Listen to her backtrack. We could have played 20 clips, maybe we should have, of her saying that prices won't go up for people. Here's what she said yesterday.
More backtracking now from the Obama administration, admitting that some Americans will pay more for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. During a visit to Miami, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius stopped at a local library to talk to local residents about enrolling on the health insurance website. She also acknowledged that some people will pay higher premiums under Obamacare.
There are some individuals who may be looking at increases. I think you cannot make a statement based on cost unless you compare what they had to what they're going into.
Some people, how about millions? And this is where, again, when people see this, and someone, instead of saying, listen, we were totally wrong, I'm sorry, didn't think anybody would pay more. We thought we could insure a lot more people for a lot less money. We were fools. That's what the statement should be. Instead, it should be, listen, millions of people will pay higher. In fact, it looks as though millions of people will pay more for less. They won't get the same doctor. They won't have the same policy. They won't be able to go to the same hospital. So they'll pay more, in some cases a lot more, for less. There will be people who will pay less. Always are. There will be people who will pay exactly the same. But there'll be millions of people who will pay more, and that was always going to be the way. So the trust and competency, and she's extremely incompetent. I think she was the governor of Kansas. It blows my mind. And Kansas is considered a fairly well-run state. Maybe just on autopilot when she was there. But she's incompetent. She should have been fired. I mean, how can people not see that? I mean, American people can see it. How does the president not see it? What is his theory to get back? You know? It's not going to be about the debt crisis coming up in February. As far as the debt limit, that'll favor Republicans. The budget thing is a total disaster for this country. We'll talk about in another show, a full show on that later this week. How does he think he's going to get back when he's lost the trust? What's he going to get the trust back with? People don't trust him, and they know now, like they should have known then, that anybody who was a community organizer and a lawyer, blah, 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 is massively incompetent to run the federal government. Anyway, we'll take one more break. It's Steve Laffey. Steve Laffey's Fixing America at LaffeyRadio.com. It's Newsday Tuesday. I have a couple of quick things to get through that I think you'll enjoy. I'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. I go to school with your children. We say the Pledge of Allegiance together. You see me around the neighborhood and you tell me that I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm one out of every 5 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger. This problem is closer than you think. My teacher tells me we can grow up to be whatever we want. I want to grow up to be someone who doesn't go to bed hungry. There's enough food in this country to feed everybody. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 8 meals for kids like me, quietly struggling with hunger. Together, we are Feeding America, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Students, when I call the reason for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Too tired, family trip, sick day, starting the holidays early.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school. How many days of school has your child missed this year? Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
The call to serve. It has no sound, yet I have heard it in the whispered retelling of honorable sacrifices made by those who have served before me. The call to serve has no form, yet I have clearly seen it. In the eyes of men and women infinitely more courageous and more driven than most. The call to serve has no weight, yet I have held it in my hands. I will commit to carry it close to my heart until my country is safe and the anguish of those less fortunate has been soothed. The call to serve is at once invisible and always present. And for those who choose to answer the call, for their country, for their fellow man, for themselves, it is the most powerful force on earth. America's Navy, a global force for good.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
Chief, you say the executive orders actually help you. However, since the president announced those orders promoting gun safety, there's a growing number of sheriffs that have written letters to the White House saying that they won't comply with the president's gun safety measures or any laws that Congress might pass. One sheriff who was just a stone's throw from where you reside in Milwaukee, even urging the people in his town to arm themselves. In your estimation, why are these sheriffs, local police chiefs like yourself, not on the same page when it comes to this issue?
Well, that's one of the things, the way things are reported. I personally don't believe banning any particular weapon is going to stop these acts. We have to go to the root of the problem and find out and identify where these things are. So
Steve Laffey, we're back for the final segment of Steve Laffey's Fixing America here at LaffeyRadio.com. We're on Facebook at Laffey Radio. Like us over there. We follow us on Twitter. Put out a lot of product every day, including this live show, which we put up into the air, and you can watch it anytime you want. We have a mobile app that you can just self-loading app. You could just put Laffey Radio into your iPhone or other product, and I was doing it this morning with some guys who were just sort of amazed. They didn't have to go on and make their own app and put some buttons. They just go to Laffey Radio. We know it's an app. We know it's a small device. You can listen to the show. You can listen to some of the shows in the archive. People put it in their car, listen to the speakers, listen at home, watch it if you want. But it's a radio and TV show, so do that. But that was basically an issue that's come up here. Now it's been in the New York Times, and you can see the reporters. That was in Wisconsin, where a sheriff is trying to explain to people that, we really can't enforce some of these laws that are being passed. And sheriffs across this country, a lot of brave sheriffs across this country, are taking the stance that you can't enforce some of these laws. And the New York Times has a big article today about a local guy here, Sheriff Cook, who I know, who I just had his fundraiser 2 weeks ago with his lovely wife. And he's decided that he can't enforce these laws in Colorado. And so haven't about all but 7 sheriffs in this whole state. And because when they pass these laws, they want to chip away at taking away people's gun rights. They want to take away all your gun rights, but they're going to chip away every year. And so Sheriff Cook, right now in the state of Colorado, you cannot buy a 17-round magazine for, say, a Glock 17, something that I actually have. But if you bought it before July 1st of this year, you can't have them. So what did everybody do when they were passing the law, including me? They went out and bought lifetime supplies of 17 rounds. You can't have more than 15. So now you can't buy it anymore. But these things don't wear out, by the way. There's millions of them. There's millions of them all over the country. I have not a lifetime. I have like 7 lifetime supply of these, because I'm going to keep a Glock 17, and I guess the one they're going to, if I want to get a new one, which I probably never need, I have a couple of them. If I wanted to get another one, for whatever reason, I like a different color or so forth, I want to give one to my son when he gets his handgun training, I can't get one with 17 rounds in it, so I got to get one with 15, I suppose. Plus, they have these shotgun laws that any shotgun that can be converted into holding so many rounds, I think it's 7. Well, all of them can be. So why do they expect the sheriff of a county, this is Weld County where Sheriff Cook is, why do they expect him to do anything about this? He's going to waste his time filing papers, pulling people over, or even when he sees someone, because you can open carry or conceal carry like I do, saying, wait a second, when did you get that? Prove it to me. There's nothing on these magazines that say when they were manufactured or when they were sold. So you can't, but what's happening now is the people who want to control your life, take away your freedom, they're thinking these guys should be put in jail. They're thinking that John Cook, the sheriff of Weld County, he should be prosecuted, which he won't in Colorado. He's a good man. Hopefully he wins his state Senate race, and just a very decent guy. And when you know these sheriffs, and I've met several of them, the one here, Smith, and a couple others, through my time here in Colorado, they seem to be just decent guys. But they know they can't really enforce these laws. That's why the passing of these laws, which has caused 2 people to be recalled in the state and 1 to resign, I think, were bad laws, just terrible laws. Number 1, they weren't going to approve anything, they weren't going to do anything, and 2, they can't be interpreted, they can't be enforced. But that shows you how incompetent, say, the far left. I hate to say the word left or right sometimes, but that some of these people are. The people in this state are just massively incompetent who wanted to pass these laws. These weren't the kind of laws they should have been trying to pass. They should have left this thing alone. But they can't help themselves. And that's the thing to realize about the people who want to control your lives, who don't want you to have freedom, who don't believe in competitive federalism. They want to control your lives just because they want to control your lives. You know, they're like the bullies you saw growing up in school. They've never changed. They're mad that you're doing well. They want to control your lives. So we're gonna run out of time. I want to play one more clip here. This is another local but national story. It's about Chinese nationals coming into our country and stealing our products. They're here to do that. We don't stop them, but finally we arrested several of them. I'm going to play this one clip. It's a longer clip, but I got time to play it.
47-year-old Wei Chong Zhong and 63-year-old Weng Gui Yan are charged with conspiracy to steal trade secrets. The target was a research facility in Junction City operated by Ventria Bioscience, based in Fort Collins, Colorado. According to U.S. Attorney Barry Grissom, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents found stolen seeds in the luggage of a Chinese delegation preparing to board a plane for China last August. The two suspects had arranged visits to several Midwestern agricultural facilities and universities, according to the complaint. A search of Zhong's residence in Manhattan, Kansas this Wednesday turned up more rice seeds similar to those the visiting delegation was attempting to take home. Ventria President and CEO Scott Dieter confirms that Zhong was a Ventria employee.
We're cooperating with this. We need to let the facts come to light and see what the facts are before we make any decisions on our side.
Zhong was hired by Ventria as a rice breeder in 2008. What's so special about the rice developed by Ventria? Dieter says it's genetically modified to grow proteins for medical and pharmaceutical uses, and to do it very efficiently.
It's a really important technology. It's foundational. I would say between $1 and $2 billion has been invested in the ability of plants to become a factory for these types of products.
One of the proteins grown by the rice, albumin, is already being produced and marketed commercially under the trade name Celastim. It's advertised as an animal-free supplement to help cell cultures, stem cells for example, grow better. The other protein is a recombinant version of a key component of mother's milk called lactoferrin. It's still in clinical trials. In a 2006 interview for the KPR series Kansas Health, A Prescription for Change, Dieter said this product could reduce the death toll from diarrhea, which he describes as the second leading killer of children around the world.
And there you have it. Two different sets of Chinese nationals have come into our country. One, I don't know why they hired them at Ventria, which is right here in Fort Collins, but they're trying to take seeds out that are worth, who knows, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and destroy these people's business lines. And if you don't think they're not working for the Chinese national government, you got rocks in your head. These stories happen all the time in America. These type of things go on all the time. That's a story that's not even going to make the front page of anything. But this is what the Chinese national are doing. They'll steal. They steal it when we move facilities to China. They take our technology in China. They figure out how we're making things, and then they stop making them. They have fake Apple stores in China, which is totally fake products. It goes on and on and on, and it gets worse. So we got more stories to cover. But Mr. Mo, Mr. Mo, who works for King's Noah Seed, a unit of Beijing-based DBN Group. This is one of the guys charged. According to U.S. officials, couldn't be reached for a comment. His lawyer, he's not part of any conspiracy. He has a farm in Iowa. He's growing corn for research. You've got to be kidding me. Got to be kidding me. Which brings us to, we'll try to do a couple more stories. We're going to run out of time. But China, back when Sputnik was launched, the Russians, the Soviet Union at the time, we all in America said, oh my gosh, they're going to overtake us. We've got to stop them. Kennedy became president. The man, the moon speech happened. He said, we're going to put a man on the moon. We talked about this in our tribute to John F. Kennedy, 50 years of his death, back in November 22nd. Yesterday, day before yesterday, China put their first capsule, landed it on the moon. Not just in space, they've done that before. And here we are, there's an op-ed here. the story over here. People in America just wandering around, it looks like, not knowing what that really means. What does it mean for their military capacity? What does it mean for them in their nation to look forward rather than backwards? What have we done? July, I think, 21st, 2011, the Atlantis stopped flying. That was our last space shuttle mission. Today, our astronauts fly on a Russian ship to go to the International Space Station, which luckily, thankfully, we don't allow China to go up to. But they don't need to. They're taking our money, your money, not this money. This is all American-made stuff. They're not taking my money, or very little of it nowadays. And they're turning it into cash and building up the military. I mean, we could have done 20 stories today about what they're doing with ships over in the ADIZ, which we've talked about, the Air Defense Identification Zone, that they've now said you can't come into. We're over there on one of our battleships, aircraft carriers, is watching their new aircraft carrier, which has no capacities close to ours, and there was almost an accident with one of their ships to steer us away, almost crunched into one of our warships. There's going to be serious problems coming. They are not going to stop unless we tell them to stop, unless we gang together with Japan and other countries. Anyway, that's China. They're putting a spacecraft on the moon. They're going to keep doing it. We don't have anything going in space since 2011. We hadn't had a man on the moon since the 70s. We've got to end here. It's Newsday Tuesday. We thank you for listening. Steve Laffey, Steve Laffey's Fixing America at LaffeyRadio.com. Tune in tomorrow. Look for our Fixing America Presents. We'll be back tomorrow with a one-topic, hard-hitting show. We can solve some problems. God bless you. Talk to you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Steve Laffey's Fixing America radio program on the Laffey Radio Network. Fixing America is broadcast Monday through Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. right here at www.laffeyradio.com. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or account of this broadcast without the express written consent of Laffey Network, LLC is prohibited.